Salutations and mutilations. You're listening to Otherworldly Culture presents Dead On Movie Reviews. Tonight, we present horror movie reviews and lively debate here on otherworldlyculture.com and on future select Tuesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern. You can join our live chat at that time by clicking on the live shows link on the otherworldlyculture.com website. I'm your host, Tim Kretschmann, coming to you from the land of lakes and landfills, beautiful and smelly Muskego, Wisconsin. Dead On Movie Reviews is now one of 4 rotating shows on Dead On Thursdays. Alternating weeks, we'll have Dead On the Bases, our horror sports mashup, Horror Realm Radio, the official podcast of Pittsburgh's Horror Realm Convention, and our newest offering, Now Streaming, which is a panel discussion on a film on a free ad-supported streaming service. It premieres this Halloween, and I'll give you a hint. The movie we're watching is Transylvania 6-5000.
It's the best movie ever made. I said that on Facebook like a long time ago. It's totally true.
All right. Well, now it's my turn and my honor to introduce the Faculty of Fear panel presenting tonight's lectures. Hailing from the Motor City, Detroit, Michael Cieslak is a lifetime reader and writer of horror, mystery, and speculative fiction. He has served as an officer in the Great Lakes Association of Horror Writers and is the editor of the Eerie Tales anthologies. Michael is the editor-in-chief of Dragon's Roost Press, and his works have appeared in a number of collections, including DOA Extreme Horror, Dead Science, Vicious Verses and Reanimated Rhymes, and the collaborative steampunk novel Army of Brass. He is a kilt enthusiast, and he's killing it over at thedragonsroost.biz. It's Michael Cieslak.
Sorry, I dozed off during that really long introduction. Hey, everyone.
I shortened it a lot.
I
took out all the words that I trip over all the time.
I was going to say, you took out all the long words, the multisyllabic words.
I don't like all the big long words. They're scary to me. Okay, then we also have Mike Exler is back again. He's the denizen of the dismal, the purveyor of the putrid. That exciting exclaimer of glorious gloom wrestling up from his stony tomb. He's the monster, the mad ghoul, the glad, and that sack of mumbling, moaning pus that barfs out baloney. He's the one and only, our panel purveying provocateur, Mike Exler.
Hi, Tim. I was thinking we should do a show about Tremors. Movie.
Yes.
We got to do that on Dead on the Bases. That is one of my absolute favorites. I love that
a
movie.
retrospective, like a round table of Tremors. Just saying.
But to do it, I think we have to watch all of them so that we can crap on all the ones that aren't the first one.
Well, that could be part 2, but part 1 should be a serious take on how good Tremors is.
Yeah, and it's the right way to make that type of movie, in my opinion. A lot of people have tried and failed miserably, just miserably. But, all right, well, we're going to get things started because I think a lot of people are excited about this week's special film reviews. These are all, well, 2 of them are hot movies, and then there's the movie I have. So Here we go. We're going to start with you, Mike. Well, I say Mike, and both of them go, which one? I'm going to say, Mike Cieslak, what have you been watching?
I thought we would just both talk at the same time and see if you guys could piece together which one was from which review.
We would put one in the left channel and one in the right channel, and people could just slide back and forth between reviews.
Before I get started this week, I just wanted to point out something I found out just a couple days ago. A while back, I interviewed. Good Lord, it's starting already. I reviewed Nosferatu.
Yeah.
Not the one that's coming out in December with Skarsgård, but the one that was running the convention circuit with Doug Jones as the titular vampire.
Right.
That is now available to rent on Prime and Apple TV, Apple Plus, whatever the heck that one's called. So if you were interested in it, it is now available.
That's the one with Doug Jones, right?
Right.
That one
was the result of the Kickstarter program. Yeah.
Yeah, they're differentiating it by calling it something like the Symphony of Fear, not
Symphony of Terror. Yeah.
Terror. Okay, so there is going to be a different Nosferatu coming out to the theaters this winter.
Yes, this December. Skarsgård and Willem Dafoe.
I think it's Kurt Eggers.
Everything.
It's a law now. You have to have a Skarsgård in your picture, especially if it's a remake.
Well, we saw that work.
Clown one, is it?
Well,
is it the guy that plays it?
Yes,
I
that's
believe
the
it is,
same
yes.
guy. He's also the guy that killed the Crow franchise this year.
Why does this? I don't care if a Skarsgård has to be in it, but why does it have to be this one?
Because he is contractually obligated to do nothing but remakes.
That's not true. He was in Barbarian, and he was fine in Barbarian.
There was a movie called Barbarian that was made before. It could just be a reimagining of that one.
All right.
He was in John Wick 4, and he played the bad guy, and he actually did pretty well. So.
He was? He was in 4. I haven't caught 4 yet.
Yeah, it's 4 is really good, and he is the main bad guy. He's actually at the head of the table, if you've seen the films.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Well, he worked, like, there's the table, and then there's him. So no one really knows who the table is, you know what I mean? But him is the guy. And, an amazing film. I will say that.
Okay. That's a bonus review. And now
one little factoid about John Wick that I just learned. It was shot 10 years ago this year.
Mm-hmm.
And it came up, I think, $6 or $7 million short, just around there somewhere. And they didn't have a finance gap.
I think I know this one. Yeah.
Yep. To make the film. So they had something set up and fell through. So they were literally ready to just throw this movie in the trash can. And Ava Longoria was like, got you, and sent them the money. And she's the reason why there's a John Wick franchise.
Yep.
So that was pretty neat.
Yep. That is a good story.
And now that we've established that John Wick is 10 years old, I have to excuse myself because I think there's some kids that are on my lawn that I need to go yell at like the old man that I am.
Right?
Yeah.
Ridiculous. It's horrible.
Sigh.
But probably, I think, top 5 action franchises ever made.
Definitely, yes.
Well, they finally let a stuntman direct one. That was key to it in my mind. All right,
and
well,
Keanu Reeves.
Yeah, that's big too. That's big. All right, Mike, let's get to the movie here.
Sorry.
It's okay.
I'm just gonna sit here and smile. Yes, I went to see Smile 2, which apparently is doing okay at the box office. Tim was saying it was doing all right, I guess.
Yeah, it's number one at the box office this week, but it's a slow box office week, but it was number 1 this week.
I'm going to try to keep this as spoiler-free as possible.
Thank you.
But the pre-opening credits sequence, damn.
Oh.
Just holy, yeah, and not really connected to the rest of the film. It's like this takes place, the opening credit scene, wow, and then goes back 6 days. It actually starts with the word 6 days later. Gives you this like completely unexpected scene, and then we jump into the life and times of Sky Riley, played by Naomi Scott. She's a Grammy-winning pop singer. She is just starting out or preparing for her kind of comeback tour. She big world tour. She was at the top of her game, was in a horrific car accident with her actor boyfriend, and he dies. We don't see this. We see this later on in flashbacks, but we get in her introductory scenes, we find out all of the stuff. There's actually a kind of amusing scene where she's being interviewed on the Drew Barry show by Drew Barry playing herself. And it kind of goes into her new look and all this horrible things that have happened to her, but she's been off the scene for like a year, both in drug rehab and physical therapy. And just a brief aside, her actor boyfriend, Paul, has one of the creepiest smiles in the movie. I think it's in one of the clips maybe, but if you recognize the smile, it might be because you've seen his dad's smile in a number of films equally creepy, as everything from Jack Torrance to the Joker. The guy that plays Paul in all these flashbacks and other scenes is Ray Nicholson, who is Jack Nicholson's son.
Yeah,
that's your free tidbit for the day.
Well, they've been pushing that now. That's how they're trying to get people to go back the second week. I saw a news article come out about that and how they really wanted to get him in particular because of that smile of his.
It becomes very clear, if not why, at least the audience can kind of understand why Riley was such a drug-addled mess, because her life is ridiculously stressful between prepping for this tour and her completely overbearing mother, who was played really well by Rosemary DeWitt.
Okay.
All the stress of these different appearances she has to do, and she's one of those she's like a modern pop singer, so she's not just going out on stage and singing, but she's got all the choreography and she's got this slew of background dancers. Again, not giving anything away, but there is a scene with the background dancers that is where those actors are used so well that I wanted to stand up and applaud. I'm like, that was taking something that we've established who these people are, and then taking them and using them to those actors' talents. Really, really well done. Just a great, creepy AF scene. But it kicks off where the whole thing behind this tour that they've established through these different press junkets is that she has promised that she is clean and she's coming back from her fans and she's going to make sure that nothing like that ever happens again. And she is in pain. Her back is killing her after these dance rehearsals. So she goes out to try to score some Vicodin from her old drug dealer.
Okay.
Louis Frigoli, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. Again, off the charts, hilarious. Not really hilarious. To me, it was funny, but extremely well acted. Not funny because it was like he was doing a bad job. He perfectly nails this drug dealer who has been hitting his own product and is completely paranoid. And without giving anything away on this one, because he is in all of the previews, he is where she picks up this smile virus from. He knows that there's something out there and something's trying to get him, and he's just this sweaty mess, and there is an amazing kill at that point. And again, you're like, holy crap. Sky bolts, and it's all downhill from there. In the lead up to this giant tour, she's got all of these things going on. She's starting to think maybe she's losing her mind. There's someone random mystery person that's texting her, I know you were in this guy's apartment when he died. It wasn't an overdose. I know that you were there, blah, 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 blah. As it builds up, she has no one there. Everyone that's around her is either just trying to use her for one reason or another, or they're like this like fawning fans. Even her assistant is just so cloying. He's like, oh yeah, oh, let me make sure that your coffee's the right temperature, kind of just one of those. He's so helpful, he's repulsive. So she ends up reaching out to one of her old childhood friends, Gemma. And she's not sure if Gemma's going to respond, because when she was a year ago, when she was like coked to the gills, treated her terribly. You see a brief glimpse of some of the horrible things that they were texting back and forth. And she's just absolutely awful to her. But Gemma comes and she's like the one like solid grounding person in her life through all of this. Despite that, creepy things are happening all around her. More people with that weird creepy smile that is the title is based upon. She's not sure if she's hallucinating or not. She's seeing stuff. She's not sure if it's there or not. There's some hallucinations that she has that lead to some absolutely terrible things that happen out in public in front of like the media. So it's just broadcast everywhere. Everyone's just assuming, that she's backsliding. She's back on the drugs again. They're trying to figure out how to spin this. Some of her, like her handlers are like, is she back on drugs? What can we do? We're going to throw her in this rehab thing. Stopping myself before I accidentally let something slip.
I have my finger on the trigger over here. I'm ready.
There are some twists, some of which you might know are coming. You might guess what they are. Some of which you might not. There are some reveals at the very end through the flashback portions that you're like, oh my gosh. And I thought the actual ending of it was absolutely delicious. The writer/director, Parker Finn, who was also wrote and directed the first one, if I'm not mistaken.
That's correct, yeah.
Has not only composed some really totally disturbing shots, the setup for some of this, they're just amazingly creepy, but he also has some really moving, almost heart-wrenching dialogue that makes me think that maybe he's worked through some kind of mental stuff on his own, because I could like identify with some of them, like, oh, I know someone that went through that, or I have heard that before. Thought that was really, really well done. Okay. I hope that he is dealing with his stuff well through putting it up on the film, but it's just my assumption. But
I should mention too that the original Smile is right now the #1 streamed movie on Paramount Plus. So a lot of people are revisiting that. The question, and you're not yet at grades, but please answer this question for me, is do you have to see the first movie before you see this one? And
I don't. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, and the other question will be, should we wait for streaming? Because I have a feeling this is going to be on streaming before the year ends.
To answer the first question, I don't think you need to have seen the whole thing, because I remember liking the first Smile, but I don't remember all the bits and pieces of it.
Okay.
The people that I was with when we went to see it, when you have that opening scene, you're like, how did the first one end? Does this like tie into how the first one ends? So I think you'll need to have like the basic knowledge of how this Smile thing progresses through people.
Okay.
And I think you can pick all that up just by watching the trailer.
Okay.
As for does it need to be seen on this? It wouldn't hurt you to see it on the screen, but there's nothing big that needs to be, that I don't think that this would necessarily benefit all that much from a cinematic experience. There's nothing that you need to see in a large screen. I think this is one you could wait for streaming and maybe even do a double feature.
I'll tell you, when it comes to horror films, my thing isn't over the effects like over the top, like Godzilla or something. Yeah, you're gonna go see that. But most horror movies, my thing is, I want to see it with an audience. If other audience members are actually going to react and be scared or and all that stuff. But if everybody's just going to sit there, which happens in a lot of horror movies, then I can watch it at home. So was the audience into it, I guess, is my...
The audience was definitely into it, and the reactions that you got were not necessarily from... like boos. They weren't like a jump scare thing where everyone goes "Wah!" at the same time. There were parts where like something was happening and the audience was going, oh,
yeah, that's the stuff I like.
Audience reaction,
yeah, I like that. Okay, cool. So are we at grading yet, or?
I am ready for grading if you are, sir.
I am. I gotta press some buttons. Okay, what are you grading Smile 2?
I'm gonna give this one a B+. I think there are a couple little things that I was willing to overlook. It's right on the cusp between a B+ and an A- for me.
Ooh.
But definitely a solid film and one that I am recommending you go see, or at least see somewhere.
All right, fantastic. Well, thank you. I'm very curious because I have not yet seen the first one. And it sounds like I probably need to hit that over the weekend and then go see it out in the theater.
I've got a bunch of stuff lined up because it's that week leading into Halloween, so there's all kinds of stuff that's going on.
Right.
But I am planning on revisiting the first one, which I have seen, and like I said, I remember enjoying it. Mm-hmm. So after seeing this one, I think I am going to go back and watch the first one again.
Fantastic. Well, thanks a lot, Mike. We go from one Mike to the other Mike. Mike Gegsler, what have you been watching?
So I checked out the 2024 remake of Salem's Lot. This one clocks in at an hour and 54 minutes. I was going to do something where I was going to watch the original, and then, having watched this one and compare and contrast, and then I looked and saw it was like 3 hours and a lot of minutes, and I was like, no, I'm good on all of that. And, it's a mini series, I realize.
I was going to say, you got to be careful with those ones that weren't theatrically released, but were still back in the days when we had the mini series events, 2-night event on ABC.
I remember seeing it originally that way as the mini series. And then I think it came out on VHS as a cut down movie. And I always felt like they cut the wrong stuff, so I always go back to the miniseries.
Yeah, I almost think that I'm going to have to look this up now. There's part of me that wants to say that they did like a limited theatrical release of a shortened version, but I will verify that and leave it in the chat.
Okay. So, Mike, tell us about Salem's Lot 2024. I believe they've been working on this thing approximately 300 years.
At least. I'm going to preface this by saying I was a fucking young kid when I watched Salem's Lot, so I have not seen the original in a very long time. So all I remember about the original was a creepy vampire.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yep.
So I can't be mad that this is a remake. I'm sorry if people are mad that this is a remake. I was just curious, and I went into a couple threads, and man, there are some really mad people that they had the audacity to make a fucking remake out of an ABC miniseries or whoever did this miniseries.
They didn't seem to react that way to it.
Right? But that was really weird, wasn't it? Like, no one was like, I'm mad about that. Like, they were like, yeah, that's cool. I don't get people. They don't make any sense.
I will say the original Salem's Lot miniseries by Toby Hooper with David Soul and all that, It is an extremely 70s experience or early 80s experience. It really is. But it is one of my absolute favorite vampire films by a large margin. Because it has the scene with the Glick boy and the master being so freaking creepy. And it's the reason that movie was good enough to get me to read that, 600-page novel?
It's like a phone book.
It is. I think that one, it and The Stand, if you carry all three for a week, you lose 10 pounds. Right. I believe that's the Stephen King.
And you get a hernia.
Workout. You really do.
So, I'm assuming this is the same plot. An author returns to his hometown of Jerusalem's Lot in search of inspiration for his next book, only to discover that the townspeople are being attacked by a bloodthirsty vampire. So that is the plot. So,
yep.
I don't want to belabor that. The director, he's been around the block a couple times, the horror block, if you will. He's deep in the Conjuring universe. Like, when I say deep, I mean he's real deep. He started out with Annabelle, then went to Annabelle Creation, then to The Nun, then Annabelle Comes Home, which is my favorite of the,
Conjuring verse?
Conjuring. Yep.
Which one? The first Nun? Was it the first Nun, Mike? That you liked the most? Okay.
No, Annabelle Comes Home.
Oh, Annabelle Comes Home. Yeah, I agree with you on that, because I was like, I didn't really like The Nun. Annabelle Comes Home is surprisingly effective.
Yeah. He wrote The Nun. I'm sorry, he didn't. He wrote it. Oh, yeah. So he's been around, and he's done some other things. He wrote The Nun 2, Chapter 2, whatever. So this guy knows what he's doing in the horror scene. As far as the way it's shot and how it looks like a horror movie. Period. I think I've talked about this a lot. That there's a lot of horror movies these days that just do not look nor feel like a horror film. Like, I'm not talking like there needs to be fog rolling everywhere, you know what I mean, or wolves howling in the background. It's just, there's a certain feel to a horror movie that I think has been lost over time. And this movie, I think, does really well grasping that and putting it on screen. So that was definitely a plus for this movie. Are there times that I wish they would have cut some of it out? Yes. But I mean,
but keep in mind, there are people that, like me, read that whole novel, and you might be cutting their absolute favorite season and be all pissed. Cut that one part, you know.
Like,
it's such a long book.
I was getting a little bored at some times, and I'm like, man, this is an hour and 50 some minutes or whatever. And I'm like, that's kind of long. Then I realized the miniseries and then the book is like a telephone book. I'm like, well, that's actually not too long for the source material. So I'm like, okay, I'm not going to be too mad about that, to be honest with you. The cast I thought was very competent. I thought they played their parts very well. I have no basis from what the other people did, so if they didn't do justice to that character, to the miniseries character, I'm very sorry for that. I just find it funny that people are so mad about this. Nobody ever, like, when you're talking about horror movies, and we've talked about them a lot, Tim.
Do we really?
Does Salem's Lot come up? Come on.
Salem's Lot does not come up much at all.
Not at all. Like zero.com. So, yeah, people being mad about it, I just don't understand. But I want to get to my favorite part of this film.
My point always with that is you don't have to watch the remake. You don't. You don't have to. And I'll say this: I do like the new It movies that came out, but I actually do prefer the Tim Curry version because, you know, as do.
I think that they did an exceptional job, especially with the kids. I thought those were a brilliant group of kid actors in It Part 1.
Yeah.
The thing that I disliked about the remake, and I broke my own rule, I try not to financially support remakes, which is my way of getting around. I'm like, okay, so usually like I'll go to the drive-in and see them as a double feature, and I'll say, okay, this is the free one. But the one thing that I did not care for about the It remake was Pennywise. I just thought he was so over the top and so creepy that you would never actually draw a kid in. Whereas Tim Curry's, at least until he went all cuckoo bananas with the knife teeth, that you're like, oh, I can see this thing drawing a kid in, and then, deadlighting his face.
Yeah, and
correct.
I agree wholeheartedly, but neither one of those movies diminishes my like or dislike of the other movie. You know what I'm saying? It's like when I watch that movie, the old one, I enjoy the things that I enjoy about that. I think it's great to see John Ritter in a horror movie. And I love certain things about the new It that really goes into sections of the book that that the original didn't even touch.
I think the new It suffers from what the original It suffered from. You have such an interesting story when they're children.
Right.
And then when you get to when they're adults, it just kind of falls flat. And especially with the remake, because the kids do such a fucking hell of a job at acting.
Yeah.
It's like, good luck. That. So the people they brought in were good, but they weren't that good, and then you're dealing with a less interesting story, in my opinion. But that's it.
Well, when you read the book, it's the same way. It's got nothing to do with those actors. The story is about a loss of innocence. So when there's adults, who cares? The loss of innocence once you're an adult, right? So he should have had a different theme for the adult thing. I think that might have worked better. But honestly, who am I to say what he should have done? The effort is very, very successful. Even with how lame the ending of that film is, keep in mind the book is even worse. The ending. I've never read such a bad ending of a book in it. Now, Salem's Lot, it has a solid ending in both the TV miniseries and the book. So I have high expectations for this film.
So I'm just going to continue. I'm not going to tell anything about the plot, because if you've seen, you know the plot of this film. So I'm not going to belabor the part of that, and I'm sure people out there are not even listening to me, or they know the plot of the film. So for me, it's like I said, it feels like a horror film, which is very important to me. The thing I like the best about the film are the vampires, not just the head vampire guy, but who really doesn't even get a name. It's just like the vampire guy.
I thought it was the Master, isn't it? Don't they call him the Master?
I have no idea, Tim.
Or Barlow. Isn't it? I think it's Barlow. I want to say it's Barlow. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I'm getting real geeky now.
I can't look up. Oh, William Sadler's in it.
Ooh.
He looks old.
If William Sadler's in there, okay, I know nothing about this. I would cast him as the gravedigger, as the cemetery guy.
No, he's the sheriff.
Oh. Totally missed it. Because the character he plays in The Mist, Salem, is basically the cemetery guy from Salem's Lot. The way the book was written, anyway. So, okay.
So back to the vampires.
Yes.
They do this effect, and obviously it's CGI or whatever, but with the eyes. I mean, we all know they kind of look like the Nosferatu vampires.
Right.
They kind of got that vibe going on. But the eyes, man, they're like these little dim flashlights coming out of their skull. Ooh. And it just looks really good, man. I don't know how you can be a horror fan and look at that objectively and be like, that looks like shit. Like, it doesn't. I'm sorry. It looks really fucking cool. And that's what I thought the entire time the vampires were on the screen. There's a scene where the kid gets to the main street of Salem's Lot, and he stopped, and the camera's shooting up at these like group of houses, and then all of a sudden you see sort of this like dark movement on the houses, and then all the eyes just open up immediately, and that's all you see is like, that's the best I can describe it as. It's like a dim flashlight. Ooh. And it's just so creepy. That one scene where he's on the street, man, creep factor of a 10 all day long, in my opinion. It looked great, and it got you. It felt like a fucking horror movie. Period. Again, the lighting was good. We talked a little bit about the editing bay. You know, I was going back and forth on that. I think they did, you know, at just under 2 hours, they got the story out. You know what I mean? I don't think they cut. Am I back?
Yeah, you're back.
You're there. Yeah.
Okay. I don't think they lost any of the story, because again, I have nothing to compare to, but this was a full story. This went from start to finish. The ending I thought was really well done. Got a lot of Dracula vibes off the whole thing. Kind of, you know, he's in the coffin and everything, and has people working for him, but that's neither here nor there. But it's just got those kind of vibes, a little nod maybe to Dracula. I'm not sure if that's what Stephen King had in mind, but again, I don't really have much more to say, because it's a remake, and you know, we all know what it's about. But again, horror movie vibe. Yes, it's a little slow at some point, but again, there's a lot of source material, so just relax with that. Right. And if I tell you to relax with that, that's saying something, because I don't like long movies, especially horror movies, because as Tim always says, I'll give him credit, it's hard to keep that tension up that long.
That's right.
I'll give you credit for that.
That's right.
So
it sounds like you're working toward a grade. What are you going to grade the new Salem's Lot?
I'm going to give it an A-.
Ooh.
All right.
Okay, now I'm going to say this, and don't be offended, but that's like an A for almost anybody else. Because this is not your jam as far as a horror film. It is not dark horror. This is more fantasy and that sort of thing. So that's a remarkably high score.
Yeah, no, I thought, you know, is it perfect? No, that's, you know, why I'm giving it the A-. And but, you know, the more I watch these movies and the more I review them, a perfect movie doesn't exist. And, you know, there are shit movies, and I tend to not even, if it's shit, I'm shutting it off within the first 20 minutes. I'm not enduring bad movies anymore.
Right.
Maybe once or twice I'll let a couple slide, but yeah, just go into this with an open mind for the people that don't like that they remade this miniseries, and I think you'll be surprised.
I want people to understand, Mike doesn't watch bad horror movies, and he keeps trying to get me to watch Cannibal Killer Clowns on Dope.
There's nothing bad about that movie. Movie's so far before its time. I don't even understand it.
I don't believe you. Just for the record, I think you're full of it. But okay, all right. Well, thanks, Mike. Really appreciate that. It's time for my review. Oh Lord, what did I watch? I watched Five Nights at Freddy's. I was surprised that Tom Green doesn't appear in the film at all.
Daddy, would you like some sausage? Why would he appear in the film, Tim?
Freddy got fingered.
Oh.
Right? I mean, you don't know how many times before the show tonight I'm like, don't say Freddy got fingered. Don't say Freddy got fingered. It's Five Nights at Freddy's. Five Nights at Freddy's. Because I kept calling it Freddy got fingered at work, and that didn't go well. Anyway.
Yeah. There's the joke there about a razor glove that I am not going to make.
So, Five Nights at Freddy's is based on a video game that I've never played. I kind of went in fresh with this, even though this was a pretty big hit last Halloween. It came out on Peacock the same weekend it was in theaters. I did a little research. Let me see here. It actually opened at 80 million opening weekend, which is more than any other Blumhouse film, including their remake, the Halloween 2018, which was only 76 million. And it's the second biggest opening weekend gross for any film based on a video game. It is second only to the Super Mario Brothers movie, which was a monster hit. So...
And deservedly so.
Well, in any event, I'm like going into this movie going, okay, this is a popular film. I'm more of a populist. I'm not one of these guys that lives and breathes by Terrifier. I'm like, I like it a little bit more fun and fantasy. And I also found out that instead of using CGI, they used the Jim Henson Creature Shop, which I'm a big fan of that type of effects. So I was like, okay, this is going to be fun. The movie, for the uninitiated, Josh Hutcherson is a guy with, he has a childhood trauma, and he's the guardian for his much, much younger sister, which the timeline in this movie, if you start thinking about it, it's not going to make any sense, because there is clearly 20 to 30 years difference between this guy and his younger sister. And this childhood trauma happens when the kid's like 10, and that breaks up the marriage of his parents, though this younger sister is not a stepsister. So it's like, what the hell's going on with that? But just, this is not a movie where you're going to sit there and go, well, the timeline's a little bit off. No, just go with it, you know. They do have Mary Stuart Masterson, who I had not seen in forever, is in this. She's playing basically the evil step monster. She's an aunt that wants the sister, but I can't figure out why, because there's no money involved on this, because Josh Hutcherson is broke on his butt. So I don't know why she wants the girl, because she has no scruples. She's not a good person. So I'm like, I don't really understand why she feels so strongly that she needs to get this young sister of his. I will say, Mary Stuart Masterson, almost every scene she's in, she has her funny little lawyer, played by a guy, I looked him up. His name is Michael P. Sullivan. This guy was fantastic. He stole every scene he was in. He's basically the lawyer that knows that the person that he's representing is completely evil. And he's like, I don't want to be here all the time. I looked up his resume. He must be on the Universal Day Player list, because he made Renfield before this one, and he was in the TV series Twisted Metal, which I believe also was shot at Universal. And, oh, you'll like this.
Great series also.
I thought it was good. He was also in Smothered, that John Schneider horror movie where he had like Mosley and all the other, I'll call them convention actors, were all in that thing. But this guy was in that one too.
Sorry.
Someone get extra some oxygen.
He loves it when I bring that sort of stuff up. I call them convention movies, where it's like, how are you going to cast your movie? Well, I'm going to go to Horror Realm, and I'm just going to walk down the path there and offer $50 to every person there and see what type of movie I can put together.
Yes, sir.
I like the way you slip the plug in there too. Nicely done. Thank
you.
Done.
Thank you. I thought I did a nice job on that one. So anyway, Josh, he loses his job as a security guard, oddly for just beating the piss out of somebody, and he gets a job offered to him by Shaggy, Matt Lillard. Which I was, again, I kind of looked into it. Matt Lillard actually did the voice Shaggy, not just for the movies that he made, but he was like the legit voice of the cartoons for like almost 2 decades. I was like, holy cow. Yeah. He took over for Casey Kasem. Is he? Sorry. You would know. I think you did you do a panel or?
No, it's one that I wrote and did all the prep work for and everything. And then he said, I prefer not to do them with moderators. And he just goes up there and opines about himself over and over again. It's great. That guy sucks.
Those are always fun. Well, he's a job counselor in here, and he gets him a job as a night watchman at a pizza place, which you would say is like a Chuck E. Cheese, but with my background, I always bring up Showbiz Pizza. I loved Showbiz Pizza growing up. One of my absolute favorite documentaries, it's out there on a couple of the fast streaming services, is called The Rockafire Explosion, which is about the, quote, band from Showbiz Pizza. If you're even moderately interested in that era of the Chuck E. Cheese and Showbiz Pizza, you have to watch that documentary. It's incredible. It's so well done because the people you think are crazy are not the crazy ones, it turns out, as the movie goes on. It's really, really well done. So anyway, no spoilers. But the robot band in here, they're possessed or something, and they start killing interlopers. Now, here's the thing. There is a good movie here, but where'd it go? It felt like the story with Josh and his sister, they thought that was so important that more than half the runtime of this film doesn't occur in Freddy's. It isn't at the pizza place. They have a few interesting kills in there. Those are all happening at Freddy's. And those were fun, and you're kind of like, oh, that's kind of cool. But it seems like the movie was embarrassed or ashamed of those scenes because it has like a short little sequence of these. And then the rest of the movie, they're like, oh no, we're better than that. We're not going to show a mechanical bear rip some guy in half. What do you think I bought the ticket for? That's what I want to see. Now, what they started doing right after that sequence of a couple really kind of cool kills, they start softening the villains. I am so over softening villains. First of all, I don't need to know their motives. They can just be a bad guy. Again, I did not get a psychological breakdown on the shark in Jaws. He just eats people. That's what he does. I don't need villains to be redeemable. Oh, they're not really that bad. These people are just interloping on their territory. No, I don't need it. I want to see something that's scary. And if you understand it, it's no longer scary. This is why the Rob Zombie Halloweens, you knew I was going there, Mike. The Rob Zombie the Halloweens are so poor. You understand the bad guy.
I thought we were saying that it's okay to remake stuff. No, Rob Zombie. There's a reason.
You know what?
Remake stuff. We put money into this crap.
I actually liked the Blumhouse remake. The Rob Zombie one, I thought I didn't care for the way he made it. I don't automatically like a remake, but I don't have a problem with them. I will even say this. If somebody wants to remake Jaws, go right ahead. It's not going to make me dislike the original Jaws any more or less. I'll still love that movie. Will I probably have a hard time because I'll be comparing it to one of the greatest movies ever made? I'm probably not going to dig it a whole lot. But frankly, I think Jaws has been remade something like 300 times on the Sci-Fi Channel alone. But it's just how that is. Okay, so back to this one. It's professionally shot. It's well lit. There's decent sound. You can tell they put money into it. It's a universal picture. The story's not boring. It's not a boring movie. I wasn't like reaching over to check if I got any Facebook messages from Susie Snowflake about her upcoming premiere with now streaming, coming to Otherworldly Culture on October 31st. But it was good, but what I wanted was berserk robots. And that barely occurs in this movie. Now, you look at Willy's Wonderland. That's the one with Nicolas Cage that was made. That movie sucks for a totally different reason. Because that movie, all it is Nicolas Cage beating up on robots. But that gets old. It's like there was no story progression. There was no characters. It was just like, okay, here comes another robot. Bang, bang, hit him with a brick. Hit it with a baseball bat. It became so predictable, so just crap. Willy's was no good either. This movie, though, at least it felt like a movie. It didn't feel like a student film that got blown up from 8 minutes to 80 minutes. But I'll tell you, I'm shocked that they're making a second one. They're in the process right now of making a second one. I'm not shocked from the standpoint of it did gross $80 million in its opening weekend. Actually, to be honest, it's surprising they waited a whole year to announce that they're making another one. In fact, Jason Blum, the producer, he said that it already made its money back before the movie even got out to the theaters, just by selling the streaming and theatrical distribution rights. So it was going to be a hit. But I don't know, man. It's just not. Here's the thing. It's being touted as a horror film. Look at the poster. It's supposed to be a horror movie. This is supposed to be scary, not scary. It wasn't scary. Was it a cute little fantasy film? Yeah. But it had more to do with like a comic book movie than it did as a horror movie. It really did. You could tell, hey, there's probably a lot of story here that's part of the video game. I didn't care. I'm not part of that video game world, so it didn't mean anything to me. I think they were trying to fan service the hell out of people. And I don't know. It didn't quite hit all the marks that I would like. So I'm going to go ahead and grade this thing. And I'm going to give it... Too. Oh, what? Sorry?
Can I give my thoughts too?
Oh, you've seen it as well? Okay.
Yeah. I just thought... I knew a few people that played it. I never did. And it is exactly that, Tim. It's a huge fan service film.
Mm.
And the fan range of that film are very young.
Okay.
So I felt that it was more of a introduction type horror film.
Okay.
If anything. I didn't find it that great, but I could see being a kid having played that game, and then now it's transitioned on the big screen. I could see how that would be appealing for a certain audience. It definitely wasn't my thing, but I really think they really keyed in on who their audience is and just went straight for the gut. So that's
I just put in the chat that it had a PG-13 rating, and I think that they were deliberately making it for 12 and 13-year-olds.
Yeah, it did feel like I always call it like my first horror movie. It felt horror like one of those.
Come on.
Because, and you know what? We need those movies because how are we going to get kids addicted to these for the future if they can't have something like this? I know for me, it was the Universal Monster movies. Nobody watches a Universal Monster movie today and goes, oh my God, that guy speaks with a Romanian accent. He's scary. That doesn't happen, right? But you need those movies to make tomorrow's little horror mavens. So I get it. But this movie, I'll just tell you my grade was a C on it. I think it's okay. I didn't hate it. I watched it. You know, a lot of times I assign myself these movies and it's like, I'm going to watch it through the side of my eye while I'm sitting there on Facebook. You know, it's like, I don't care. It was a movie. It was well made. Certainly the acting was decent. Here's an interesting aside. This movie opened #1 at the box office, and Josh Hutcherson's Hunger Games co-star, Jennifer Lawrence, texted him and said, hey, my movie's #1 on Netflix. It was No Hard Feelings. And yours is #1 at the box office. Let's go. So I thought that was kind of an interesting little thing. Maybe it wasn't. I don't know that I needed to... I don't know if I need this to be a franchise, I guess is where I'm going with it. And it felt like this movie really wanted to be a franchise from the very start. And I don't know. By the way, I think I mentioned this. This is all Jim Henson Creature Shop characters that they used for this. The one character that looks like a fox actually takes 6 to 8 puppeteers to operate, which I thought was kind of interesting. That it took that many. Most of them, they just have people inside of the costume, and then some puppeteer off to the side has a radio control that moves the other stuff. But yeah, so that is the film Freddy got... Five Nights at Freddy's. It's a time in the show where we do our shameless plugs. We want to remind everybody that Horror Realm is coming. Only 126 days, everybody. I know you're counting the days. Horror Realm is on February 28th. It starts this year. February 28th instead of all March this time. So it's like 1 week earlier than you might have had in your calendar. Mike, what have you got going on over at your website?
Nothing much on the website. I am just prepping for Halloween. If you happen to be in the Metro Detroit area, come out to the Berkeley VFW Hall this Saturday for the Great Lakes Association of Horror Writers' 17th annual Monster Mash for Literacy Bash.
Ooh.
Can have cash bar. There's a penny social. There are costume contests. There'll be music all night long and free food.
Fantastic. Sounds like a great event. Yeah. And we want to remind everybody... Why won't it go? There it goes. Dead on Thursdays. We actually have 2 shows next week on otherworldly culture. On October 30th, we're going to have Horror Realm Radio. There's going to be guest announcements. At latest count, it's 4 guests are going to be announced on October 30th on Horror Realm Radio. That's on a Wednesday. It's Hell's Night. Now, Mike, you're in Detroit, so we want you to hide underneath something because you might get killed.
Never!
You might get killed.
They have been trying to change it from Devil's Night to Angel's Night, and I don't know who it is. I am not setting any fewer fires than I always did. I'm not saying how many fires I started.
Right.
But they are trying to sugarcoat this, but I've got a preview screening that I'm going to.
Oh, yeah.
But I will be spending my Devil's Night the way I always do, which is watching The Crow, which takes place on Devil's Night in Detroit, even though it wasn't filmed there. And I'm talking about the original, and whoever made the remake can burn in hell, no matter what we said about remakes.
Honestly, I think they probably will. Now,
it's probably their last movie.
Yeah. People that aren't watching The Crow are invited to come out to our website and watch Horror Realm Radio October 30th. It will be at our usual time slot, 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central. On Thursday, October 31st, on Halloween, we will be premiering our new program, Now Streaming, hosted by Susie McIntyre, and she's going to be walking 3 panelists through the incredible film experience, the cinema masterpiece, Transylvania 65000. There will be lots to talk about with that film for certain.
Let me show you something. There's an interview. I have to interject real quick. There's an interview with Ed Begley Jr. about the scene where they're all at the dinner table and Michael Richards is like shoving the ashtray in Goldblum's face, telling him to sniff it. Apparently the director just told Richards to do whatever he wanted.
That's not a good
choice. No, it's the last person you want to say that to.
Right.
So he just kept going and going, and if you could watch Jeff Goldblum just try as hard as he could not to laugh that entire scene. It's pretty funny if you watch it that way.
And it does have a Pittsburgh connection with Jeff Goldblum being there.
Yeah. No, I watched that as a kid, and I mean, I know it's not a good movie, but I love it.
Everyone I know says that. It's not that bad. It's like that movie is so many people's guilty pleasure.
Oh yeah.
I think it falls apart at the end. I think it actually starts pretty strong. That's my thing. See, my movie like that would be Love at First Bite with George Hamilton. I saw that movie at one of the like budget cinema type things. One of these after it made its theatrical run, it would go there. It'd be like $1.50 or something. I thought that was the most incredible movie that I had ever seen. Was so good. Oh, there's the Salem slot book is on the camera. That is a chunky little guy. That is a chunky guy. It's easier to watch the movie, ain't it? Oh my God. Yeah. I do prefer reading on my Nook these days because I can put all the letters this tall. It works perfect. Hey, we are over our time limit, so we are going to we're gonna call it a night. Want to remember to tell everybody, tell a friend about our show. You can catch us anywhere that there are podcasts, and you can of course catch us on Twitch and YouTube if you like the video aspect. So we're doing all of our programming here on Otherworldly Culture. So thanks again. Remember to tune in next week for 2 different shows on Wednesday and Thursday. And we want to wish you a fun and a safe Halloween. And remember, when you aim at horror, make sure your aim is dead on. Good night, everybody. Come on, there we go.
Ha 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 ha!